I'm, I was just laughing because I'm like, is he gonna dance today? And then like the beat drops and there was a little head bob, but it was just it was with a lot of disdain in it.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I was actually thinking. I was like listening. I was like, I'm not in the mood to
I'm not
bob,
gonna dance today. I knew it.
but it did it anyway. It got me moving anyway.
I'm like, but that's kind of like a little bit of an angry like.
It was a reluctant bob. It was a reluctant bob. I wonder if they're listening to this
Oh
going, they're all having
mercy!
the same experience that we are. Like, are they also listening to it and going like, "Ah, I can't, I just always move."
Probably not the same for other people, but who knows?
Who
Oh my
knows?
god!
So who out there is having a crappy day, huh?
Oh, funny.
Yeah,
So, how about I get us into it because I don't want people to
I'm
get
in.
scared here.
I'm into it. I'm in
Yeah,
it.
in it. Yeah, we popped on here. We were usually record at this time, and hey, like any other human on planet Earth, some days are more challenging than others, and when you're in it, is probably the least time you want to be seen. But here we are, and in different ways, Elon and I are both in different things as we are. Right? There's always stress points in our life, so we thought we'd explore. How do we handle a stressful day? How do we handle difficult situations from a higher consciousness, from a higher state of awareness? Caveat, asterisk, Elon's in it. Elon's in his moment right now. He didn't come on here grounded. That's how they do like the hashtag.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
trying to do
never
the
seen
ask.
someone do it. I've never seen someone do an asterisk.
That's my first time. Maybe
Oh,
I
it's amazing.
just this is gonna go
It's
global.
amazing. So
No
that's
one's gonna know what this is. It's gonna like when we were kids, it's like paddywhack, but now it's you got to do it a lot because the asterisk has a lot of lines in it.
oh man.
So, do you
Yeah,
want to share about your events? Do you want
sure,
to
sure.
forgo that and just go right into some
No,
some
no, no,
more?
no. I'll give you guys the lay of the land because I think a lot of people are probably
Sure.
in these moments now with kids being remote learning, schooling, and all that. Um, so yeah, we've just my wife and I have just been having like a really rough day with the kids. They actually have no school today, so they're just at home. And we just, without getting into all the story, like we've just been met with so much defiance today. It was just like this after this after this, like no, 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 no. Um, and as I keep finding out, there's only so many no's that I can handle
What's
before
your
the top
number?
before the
What's your
top blows.
number?
It kind of depends on the day. I think it depends a lot on like sleep, my
It's a
morning
big one.
routine, things like that.
Yeah.
That gives me more or less space. Um,
So
but
meditation. So meditation's like an extra 10 no's.
yeah,
A good
for
stretch is
sure,
like an extra five
for
no's.
sure,
If
for sure.
you're hungry, negative five no's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's all systematic and regulated internally. So
It's got an asterisk next to it.
yeah, yeah. So it's and what's really interesting is like, and I'm sure this is for most couples. It's like usually one couple is one person of the couple is a lot calmer than the other, and
Sure.
it like in our relationship, it's usually like one person will be like, "I got this,"
Yeah.
like go breathe.
We do the we do
Um,
the tag. We do the tag.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because there's always one that's like just being way more triggered. But today is one of those days where both of us got super triggered,
Yeah.
and at different times. But it was like, and then you kind of realize like when both of you are triggered, it almost like
Amplified.
accelerates it because
Yeah.
there is no one person in there that's kind of like holding that ground, and it almost like makes it validates the fact that you're really pissed at them. So it's like, oh, they're pissed too. Oh, it's on. And it was just like, yeah, yeah. It's been one of these mornings
Laughter of
where
recognition. Laughter of
I don't want
recognition.
to be around you right now,
Yeah.
little beings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let me ask you this
yeah.
question. Why do you presume that narcissism is an important part of children growing up? Like, why is it that they haven't worked yet, so they can't really think about other people, they don't know about the value of things? Like, I always wonder that. I'm like, why? Like, clearly, like, narcissism comes on really early, right?
Yeah.
Me, worldview. Is it just a small worldview? Like, what is it that, and then what's the benefit to that biologically for narcissism? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. Like what part of the things that I think get really like I get really annoyed by is, and I think most parents would agree with this. It's like there's a part that gets triggered that's like you are so disrespectful right now.
Mm,
Like there's just absolutely no reason that anyone should be talking to me this way, let alone you. Um, Especially because, like, at the end of the day, the intention as a parent is like you're always looking to help your children,
of
right?
course.
Um, and then, yeah, I don't know. Like, one of the things that I think my kids didn't process today, and we didn't help them process, which I think kind of like started the day down this path, is we've been talking about renting our house while we're going to be gone, and both of them are like a big no to it.
Because having other people in the house
Yeah, I think
and
so.
around their stuff and whatever. Yeah.
Correct. And so today I asked them to clean their room because we want to take pictures, and they were like, "No,
Yeah.
we're gonna like go mess the room up." So it could be that that kind of started the entire
Sure, sure.
defiant domino effect, and then obviously it went to a bunch of different things, and I
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
What do you remember about that age? Because like I remember even up until high school, it never really occurred to me till I got older. I mean, definitely not when we were teenagers either. That like mom and dad had emotions the way that I had emotions. I felt very unique in my experience. Like nobody really understood the pain I was in, right? Like the teenage angst kind of stuff. And so I imagine that kind of starts even in more subtle ways as they're younger. Like they couldn't possibly know, or they don't think that you're an emotional being. Like, did that occur to you as a kid? I don't really remember thinking too much about mom and dad's emotional state.
No, I didn't really have that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Because I remember, dad wasn't like super emotional, but I remember mom being very emotional, and I felt like emotional at times. So, no, I don't think I've ever had that conversation. And like, look, my kids are both very emotional. Fanny and
Every,
I,
everybody's emotional. Every human's
yeah, yeah.
emotional. Yeah, sure.
But like we've all discussed emotions and talk about them all the time, and so I don't know that they have that kind of conversation. But look, at the end of the day, you're a kid, and you are always testing the boundaries of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Um, when they're younger, they do it in certain ways. When they get older, they do it in other ways. When they get older still, they do it in yet other ways. So
Sure.
yeah, it's just been it's interesting. The one thing that I have noticed that's been different is, like when I would react the way that I would react, which is like I said, like I can only take so many no's, and then after that, it's like I'm just gonna make you.
Yeah,
Like,
you only know the hammer at that point in time.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like that's what comes through. And when it used to come through, I used to just sit here and like make myself wrong for days. I was just like beating myself up and, oh my God, why did I do that? Blah, blah, blah. I don't do that so much anymore. Like I don't drop into like shame and guilt so much anymore. Today, what was interesting, I did a mini with one of our friends, and what I started to notice is I have this like part that was going through all of these parenting books and personal development books.
Mm.
And he's like, you should ask them this, and then you should tell them that. And then we're going to make this list with them. And then we're going to do that. Like, he's like starting to strategize all of these things of like how I'm going to make this okay. So it's just interesting to note that. And, like the part to me that's just so much easier today, I'm just not, like, I haven't fully processed it yet. But it's just, that's how I used to go through things. And then I was like, I'm going to have to talk to them. I'm going to have to talk
Yeah.
this. I'm going to do all that stuff. Now I'm more like, I can feel inside. I can feel that, like, that volcano rage part, that like heat that just kind of like builds in the chest and wants to like explode. Um, so I can feel it. And I know that in presence, it can just, like, I can feel certain parts of it just start to like fizzle out and move down and just
Sure.
find more ground, but it hasn't fully processed through.
Sure. So to just talk to the people watching or people listening on the podcast, like what do you do now? Like for you, it's like, and I always hesitate with the do because then some kind of process,
Yeah.
but it's like, you're yeah, different systems are going to process a surge of anger, anxiety, overwhelm in different ways. Some people escape from their bodies. Some people actually go really, really deep into their bodies, and then you're like, where did you go? Other people just have to let the energy out. Elon and I are definitely more on the aggressive pattern side of things and letting the energy out like a volcanic eruption, which doesn't feel good. When it's
It feels very good in the moment, like in the actual
3.5 seconds.
not even in the half a second
Yeah.
as it is being released feels really good. The problem is we've done so much work that the every second after that does not feel so good.
Yeah. So like to talk about that now, right? Because for me, that's also, it's a thing, right? Like that's always the way it wants to come out. Now I'm finding new channels in my system, how to process energy. Very helpful. Sometimes still system gets overwhelmed. Certainly
Oh,
that can
hell yeah.
happen. And that's kind of been the thing for me in this swirl too, the last 2 weeks. Hey, I also want to point out for anybody who's like listening, watching, whatever, like we're going through a lot of really deep energetic work right now. We have been for a year, and it's intensified with some other things. So it's like sometimes, and I often think this is the case, is like when you're doing this kind of work, energetic, and you could call it subconscious work, right? It's really the energetic body. When people point to the subconscious, it's just a different level of awareness in the system. It can like rip the lid off of certain certain management systems that you've kind of put in place, putting that in quotes here, and then suddenly you're finding yourself in these like old patterns. But what I find today is when that old pattern comes with a higher level of awareness, it gets to be seen, kind of like you said. It doesn't go into these shame and guilt spirals.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is interesting. I've overwhelmed the system, so it's coming out this way. And I've never found that I can hold this response, this thing, with a level of awareness and even love, maybe at the same time. And then it's kind of what I was trying to point to yesterday on the live stream we did. That it's like it suddenly seems like this contradictory energy, that almost creates a paradox in the system, almost like holding two thoughts that contradict each other, can be held in the system at the same time. And I don't know why. For me, that's like seems like the most important thing right now. Is like, can I still maintain this awareness even though I'm watching my system do crazy ass shit that I used to judge like crazy, knowing that at some level this is actually what's always been needed. It actually had to be seen from an unconditionally loving place so that it can dissipate and not be so attached, like this part be so attached to that it has to come out this way, right? Because I think it's like everything else. Like the kids want presents. This part of you is a part that wants presents, and it's not. You got so many no's, and then there's a part that's like, I'm not being seen right now.
Yeah,
Not
or
being
heard.
seen right now or heard right now. These fucking kids aren't looking at me right now. They don't see the value that I am. So it starts, like, for me, it always occurs like a betrayal in the system. Like I'm being betrayed, and I'm like, over something so little, somebody will wipe away years of work that you've done. You know what I mean? That kind of feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's where the eruption comes from. Not even what they're doing. I'm upset that they no longer see like my value to them or whatever it might be. And then that usually is my response to it. But yeah, like suddenly what I'm noticing, I've had quite a bit of those responses over the last 2 weeks as we've done some of these processes. And that's the best way I can kind of name it, is like, I'm watching it from a different place. There's love present even in the midst of me being sometimes a total shithead.
Yeah, I it's interesting because like I think the difference is that it used to take me a long time to get to that place of like, wow, I was being a shithead. Now I can like I'm watching it happen as it's happening.
Yeah.
The big shift, like I said, is that I'm not falling into like the shame and blame and guilt part of it, but I'm actually using it. What I said yesterday on the relationship part is, you know, I value these moments. Like, even though, so right now I'm in it, right? Like, I can feel my system I can feel like my mental side trying to work out how I'm going to fix this and what I'm going to do differently and all that stuff, right? Like, I can feel the mental construct. I can also feel that energetics that's just like revving up over here
Yeah.
that haven't fully just like relaxed and calmed down. And after this call, I have a session, so that's basically what I'm going to go to work on. But I appreciate these moments now. I think that's the biggest shift for me is
Yeah.
like I don't go into beat myself up because I'm excited that every time one of these eruptions, quote unquote, happens, right? And then I'm able to notice it because it's like so obviously in my face and so obviously in my energetic body that I have access to it in a very different way. And
Sure.
then as I allow and process that through, then now there's like new energetic pathways that get created so that the next time that my kids show up that way, I don't have that same trigger effect that was there before. And honestly, like before I would get into these places and like go into figure out mode and oh my God, why did I do it again?
Yeah.
Now I'm
So
like, cool, another layer to release.
yeah, it does seem almost like perfect timing. Again, for those of you guys listening, like we're in so many energetic processes. There's like I feel like before we were doing like one major thing at a time. Like the last 2 months, we've been doing like, I mean, me specifically, healing's maybe like two of them, but I'm doing like four major processes a week, healing sessions and stuff like that. So it's been, like someone mentioned here, like a lot of, call it raw nerves, but it really is just like as you peel off the layers, it feels like to me like every time you peel something off, the system's like, oh, good, we can now experience the next step. But of course, the next step is the thing that you hit even deeper in the
Oh my
system
God.
than
Yeah.
before. So every layer that comes off, you actually go deeper down into what might feel like even not pain, but like a level of discomfort of really things that you haven't wanted to look at, things you haven't wanted to face. And then what I have found over the years is, I mean, after like 3 years of energetic work, I remember it was the first time I had the experience of like turning towards it, that part that you don't want to look at, and not like turning away from it. Like, because it's like the shame happens. So you're almost like, I won't look at you and I'll do work from here. And then they got to a place where I'm like, I'll look at it and I'll do the work from here. So
Yeah.
I'm with you because that's a big shift from like, why is this happening again, to I'm very excited that you're here because it's only going to bring more peace, stability, well-being, such and such into my life. And then, of course, that trickles down to your relationships and how you get to show up with your children. And it
just
also
want
so
to
thank you. You're my number one teacher right now.
Yeah, and I do want to just point out one thing that I have found and take it for what it is. I find that trying to do this work on your own is very difficult
Agreed.
because you are going to loop into the trauma over and over again, and mostly you're going to go to mind to try to figure out what is happening.
Sure.
When you can find someone to sit in present connection with the right people, like you can actually sit with them and then you don't process any of this stuff through the mind. So like I know people go to therapy and they have coaches and all this stuff, and you'll bring something like this through and you'll sit and you'll discuss and you'll be like, oh, well, this happened because, when you were 5, mom didn't listen to you, and it's actually triggering that. And when your kids do it, that's what you're seeing. And you'll be like, oh my God, that's why. And then you go back to your life and it doesn't fucking matter. What are you going to tell your kids? Like, I'm really, I'm really upset because mommy didn't listen to me when I was 5, and now I'm just taking it out on you. Like, they're like, okay, stop yelling. Um, so, as cool as it is to find that stuff and like process it that way, and I did it for many years. Like I did it for, we did that kind of work for 12 plus years, and I've done it with my kids and all that stuff. Like now I realize that I don't need to mentally process this stuff.
Yeah.
Like I can just, right after this call in like 15 minutes, I'm going to sit with my mentor and we're going to sit in present and connection. And I'm just going to watch and allow for my system to naturally, effortlessly, easily release whatever was there, like whatever layer is here to show me, with no agenda to try to understand where or how it arose, because it's indifferent. Like I don't care anymore. And once that's done, and this will happen very quickly, my experience is it's almost like when we get into these heightened states, like people call them like hijacked, you legitimately are hijacked. Like you're no longer there.
You are the projection. You're no longer any awareness.
Correct. Like from an energetic place, from a physiological, you're just not there, right? Yeah. So my experience has been that when I do this work in connection with another, it feels like first it's like your system starts to ground, and I start to find my feet and my butt, and like everything just kind of like sinks and slows down. And then it almost feels like myself starts oozing back into me. And I always say it's like, oh, there I am. Like that's my experience, because it's like you just get shot. And from, for Guy and I, it's like our energy is like up and like that. Always, it's this really nice feeling when you like find yourself just fall back slowly in, and then you get into this place and you're just like so peaceful and calm and just
and honestly, until you can get the system grounded again, like really what is the point of taking any action? Nothing is going to go well. It's interesting, we talk about morality a lot and like how humans define morality and good and bad, but it's like even with children, right? Like, so the moral standards would tell you that a defiant child is like a child that's acting out or not being well or whatever it is. But defiance, like narcissism, we talked about that early on, is kind of a really important part of their development, right? And it's like what most of us didn't get in defiance is that we're still loved and contained during that level of defiance. It was like the container fell out, because most parents can hold a defiant child. And then there's a shame that happens in the child because it's like, I'm not getting love from my parent because I acted in such a way. But look, the kids have an absolute right to be upset because in their mind, it's a really big deal that someone might be in their room or touch their stuff or be in their house. Like that's not a common idea for a child. And it actually might make them feel not just mentally unsafe, but like physically, they may be having some real threat responses in the body that if Elon's not attuning to, or, Fanny's not attuning to, that the children can be left with some, experience ongoingly going forward, and actually can start showing up a lot more defiant over and over again, because now every time that feeling in the body comes up around anything, could be like, I don't like this food, it doesn't make me feel safe. They start projecting from that same programming. So the real work is not in explaining to the kids, hey, maybe this is going on, because we're adults and we can barely understand those concepts,
exactly,
right? So, but in fact, if Elon can do the energetic work, move that stuff through his system, he shows up grounded, the kids are in defiance, and he can just kind of stand with it now, and the kids get to go through their process. Their system's going to downregulate, come back to safety and connection. And from that place, now you can have an actual conversation and be like, hey, what's the actual concern?
Exactly.
And then maybe like talk to them about how, here's the exact, like, here's what it would look like to have someone in our home, because right now they're probably in a fight or flight response themselves.
Correct.
Like our kids are like master negotiators, and it's personally because they never give their position up. Like an adult knows or has learned to compromise, and I don't know if that's actually healthy, because we oftentimes remove our standards from ourselves and say, fine, we'll let that go. And we've learned that this is healthy in relationships and stuff like that. Like my son, for instance, he says little bit, but he says like this, little bit. So everything, if we say no, he just says, you want little bit. So like if Mandy's like, you can't feed right now, like a breastfeed, little bit, like over and over again. And he says that no to everything, little bit. And so it's an amazing negotiation tactic, because he only has to say a little bit a certain amount of times, and then eventually he gets a little bit of what he's looking for.
He knows.
And the funny part is with children is, so I'm like, oh, good negotiating tactic. I'm like, let me use this on you. And so when he's not eating, I'm like, Jen, just a little bit. It never works. It never works. They have these amazing one-way negotiation tactics. But I find the same thing, right? He's in this place where he's really attached to mommy when he's asleep and lots of things. Some kids are daddy, some kids are mommy. And when he's in one of these states, I can't touch him. It's like he gets very upset if I like try to soothe him through touch. Gets very upset if I try to talk to him about about any other thing, even try to redirect his energy somewhere. Doesn't work for shit. However, if I get out of mind and I drop into my system and I just hold space and I don't think to myself, hey, what this kid is doing right now is wrong. I think what this kid is doing right now is a perfect response to his concerns.
Yeah.
Right. And I hold space for him. It fizzles out every single time. Never not fizzles out. I'm just there in presence. And it's funny, even if I say anything, it will like restart the process. But if I hold it, give it a minute or two, he fizzles out, comes, gives me a hug, puts his head back down, relaxes.
Absolutely.
And I think that's true for everybody. It's like the moment someone's in a fight or flight and you respond from the fight or flight, you're both now in a not just activation sequence, but you're furthering the progression of each other's activation. When one person can get into awareness, hold space, contain the energy, whatever it might be that's coming out, nothing lasts forever. It moves through.
Yeah, and if I can like tie a bow on this, I think parents always, well, not all parents. I think parents that actually care about being a parent, because there's plenty of parents that just like don't care. They don't care to learn. They're just going to like do what their dad or mom did. And it's just like, that's all they know. And that's it. That's parenting. I think for any parent that's actively working on being a better parent and sees the relationship between you and your kids as an exploration for both of you, not like your parent, their kids, like you dominate them, but like you really see it as a co-creation that you can have together. For those parents, I know that a lot of the times we go into like, wow, I'm fucking this up. Like, like that day we're like, man, I can't believe I did that, blah, blah, blah. All right. So we go into that whole thing. The one thing I always keep reminding myself, and again, we've coached thousands of parents, right? Like, so I speak for myself and from experience. I can tell you that just the fact that you care enough about how you show up for your kids, and that you're even willing, even if it's after the fact, if you're just even willing to look and say, you know what? I didn't love the way I handled that. And I know that I can do better. Like, you're already in the 1% of the best parents on planet Earth right now. Like, just get that. Like, you're using this as an opportunity to grow and develop. And so for all those out there that, have yelled or struggled or been upset or whatever it might be, like, just realize that you caring this much is already doing more for that child than 99% of other human beings out there.
Sure.
Like, a child doesn't need much. They need to know that you're there. They need to feel love. They need to feel supported. Like that's it. It's beyond that. It's accoutrements, right? Like, oh, here's this fancy, but like the basics. That's all they need. And I think first, if you want to give more of that to your children, it always starts. You have to give it to yourself,
Yeah.
and that's the part like that I'm learning through this is I was harder on myself than anybody else. And I'm sure there's plenty of you out there. Like I beat myself up. I judge myself. Not enough, not fast enough, not this enough, blah, 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 all those stuff. Like first I had to learn to love myself. I had to love the part that gets angry. I had to love the part that gets annoyed or confused or sad or loud or whatever it might be, because until I accept those parts of myself, there is no fucking way I'm going to be able to hold compassion and space for my children to be in that.
Yeah.
And so I just want to like love on all the parents that are out there who are
Doing their thing.
yeah, like doing the best that you know how with what you got, and just enjoy the journey and enjoy the process. So yeah, that's
I
what
just want to. I'll close with this. In a weird way, I find parenting has been like another opportunity to be a child. Right? There's a lot more play in your life again, and again, it's a way of like going through that developmental cycle process with another. You know, like when people say, "Oh, I had this experience through the eyes of another," right? That's why we ask people about their travels and their relationships. You're like kind of living through their experiences, right? So with children, obviously, you're directly experiencing this whole developmental thing, but with this awareness of an adult. But in a way, everything that comes up are all the developmental misses that you as a child had, like all the misattunements from mom and dad, which every person on planet Earth has. And then it's like and those misattunements come up as parenting. So parenting is also like childrening at the same time, and again, there just happen to be these beings that point at all these things. So every one of the things that they bring up is this opportunity, not just to create more safety for them as a parent, but create more safety for yourself within your own system. And that's really, the energetic practices that we talk about here week in, week out on our Facebook group. And, for those people who do our courses, this is not stuff you can figure out with your mind. And it really is about creating more energetic fluidity in the system. So as the energy fills the body, instead of being like a balloon that gets closed off and now the air is all stuck in it, the balloon actually has a release valve. And you can bring the system back to ground and not respond and act to your life from a balloon that's stressed out, but from a system that's fully grounded, in an energetic alignment with itself, and then create something in the relationship or create something in your business or health from that place, because really nothing good ever comes from a stressed out balloon, so to speak. All right, wunderbar. Love you guys. Happy holidays for those of you guys celebrating them. We'll talk to you soon. See you next time. Bye bye.